Okay, so as you can see, at the end of the day, you're making some big plays at the quarterback position. Um, Christian Watson made some incredible catches. There were some catches on the tape that I didn't put on that were very nice as well. I think this was a very even football game, which is weird to say against a 2-9 football team. But that's kind of where the Packers are. They're winning these games because I do think they have more talent. Certainly, when you have all those guys injured for the Giants on offense in particular. But you just see, there's kind of a lack of a pass rush, not named Micah Parsons. I think we do good at getting off the single blocks in the interior, but holding up against doubles maybe isn't as good as you want. They're able to, our 12 personnel package is going to have to look different now without Tucker Kraft. I don't think defenses are going to respect us putting in 2 or 3 tight ends as far as getting what you like. We talked about this before, but part of that personnel idea is you're putting the defense in a quandary, a situation where they're going, all right, if you have this many big guys on the field, we need to counter with big guys, otherwise you'll run the ball. But if you have tight ends who aren't great blockers, I'll just over exaggerate this to not insult anybody. If you had a room full of tight ends that were 6'5" and 210 pounds, they're wide receivers. They're just slow. If they can't block, there's no reason to put in linebackers to make sure that you can hold up against them. You don't need to get to base personnel. And if you don't have to do that, you can stay in a 2-man shell, or you cover 4, cover 6, whatever you want. If you're not getting that benefit because you still can't run the football, like we can't run the football with against the 2-high shell right now, then being in 12 personnel, who cares? You might as well go to 11. Might as well go to 4 wides. It doesn't really matter, right? Because you're not getting any advantage out of it. Talked about this a little bit on Andy Herman's show. If you're not getting the advantage out of the personnel grouping that you want, whether it's the run or the pass game or both, then switch personnel groupings. And this is why we've talked about we should go to jumbo, at least as a changeup, because now like if you got a 320-pound dude in there, they're bringing a linebacker and an extra lineman. You're losing a DB. For 100%, you're losing a DB if you bring in an extra lineman. I can't say that with anybody else on this team right now. So things to think about. Guys, here's the listener questions. Let me get to them real quick. Get as many as I can here in about 15 minutes. Can someone get Mike Wall to play guard? No. I'm curious if you think the current offensive line can be a winning unit. I actually do. I just think it takes time. I think you got a player playing in the wrong position. I've talked about it before. Don't need to harp on it any longer. I think, look, what I do when I'm not here is I work with NFL guys, college guys, high school guys, in being really, really good at winning their 1v1 matchup. And one thing I don't talk about that much on the show that I probably should spend a little time on now is like offensive line. So football's cool because scheme's kind of taken over football, and football's cool because it's an 11-man sport, and everybody's got to be like, you always talk about on offense, at least everyone's got to be on the same page. What that means in large part with the 7-on-7 guys, if we were just going to kind of like split the 7-on-7 guys in the offensive line, is the 7-on-7 guys, because they see so many different coverages and zones and like, guys are trying to hide stuff. It's not like the defense lines up every single play in press man coverage and it's like, you got to beat me off the line. You got to do all this stuff, right? So identifying all that in real time as you're running full speed and I understand where the safety is, or taking your drop as the quarterback. The quarterback never has a true one-on-one matchup, right? They're always looking at the defense and reacting to it. So when we talk about like technical mastery, running back's kind of the same thing. I can give you a million different looks to play with the running back, but the running back's kind of seeing enough things in his head and understanding the scheme so you can become like what they just call like an instinctual runner. So when we talk about technique and like being able to win your 1v1, really the offensive line position or the defensive line position, maybe the linebacker position, is the one or the few positions where every single play there's an equal mix of like I have to understand what defense they're running. I have to understand the change ups and the subtleties in their stances and their splits and their depth and their safety rotation and all that. Not necessarily the same stuff to the same extent as like a wide receiver would have to because we're a different spot on the field. But I have to understand all that as in context of like what do I have to accomplish on this particular play. But now the other thing is on almost every play, I also have to beat another human being. Like another grown man is trying to do me harm and I'm trying to do him harm. And that confrontation requires that I have an incredible amount of technique. And so schemes taken over this league, and we don't think about like you always hear about in college. They don't think about the technique as much. They're like, no, just get them in the right spot. Get these big guys, like everybody run that way. Everybody, go to that guy when we're running this play and it will be okay. Kind of like it's not detailed. And so when you see really good players in the National Football League, they're not only good athletes who understand where they're going, but they also like they go to guys so they can learn how to win those one-on-one matchups. And so I harp on that offensive defensive line more than anybody else because one, that's kind of how I understand the game. But two, I see the difference in guys that can do that on a consistent basis and guys that can, and what their difference is in their paychecks and what the difference is in like how well they execute on the field and how good they look, like how aesthetically pleasing it is to watch those guys, how dominant they are. So it's not the same. Like is not a like for like across the board. Now, does a wide receiver have to have great technique on their releases, their blocking, they're coming in and out of their routes, all of it? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But they also have to know when to sit down and routes and this and that. Like it just isn't always like a me versus you, 1v1 matchup. So there is a little bit of context behind all this stuff and why we kind of always look at like, okay, well, how do we make the offensive line better? You want to be an offensive line coach. You want to like, if you really want to get good, you've got to practice that part of the game like your life depended on it. I always look at like I go to the absolute high, like biggest impact or biggest consequence to study and see how detailed they are, and then that's the standard. So, if you go look at a Navy SEAL, or if you go in sports, if you go look at like an MMA fighter, like the real practitioners, the jiu-jitsu guy, the level of detail that they're talking about, the time on the mat, the time they're studying their like how to win their 1v1, that's the standard that you want to hold yourself to if you're trying to play a position like offensive or defensive line in particular, where your technique and your value for the team is based on how you win your 1v1 matchup. So look, kind of that's the standard as I'm looking at the game. That's the standard that I'm trying to set for these guys. So maybe sometimes it seems harsh, but that's just because I don't know any other way to think about it. But I do think this team could be, have a good unit. Like I said it today. Like I like the way Aaron Banks runs off the ball. Like I like how like he tries to be a physical player, tries to finish blocks, he tries to pick up the running back. He behaviorally does the right stuff. He's just got to get better with his footwork. Are all these guys? But is he if you watch the tape, how many other guys are just running off the ball and trying to smash people versus fitting into blocks and then trying to run their feet? Like how many people are trying to be like the tip of the spear, right? Or really trying to be like the hammer and just popping somebody and then popping those hips through, like getting your hands inside and then running, having your feet chase your hips, like being sudden. How many guys are doing that versus like getting chest to chest, maybe hands are outside, and then just kind of like, doing some of whatever this is, doing some of that, and then just kind of, stalemating. The more we get guys to feel confident enough in their footwork that they can get off the ball, right, and get to their position, or feel confident they can punch through their hips and really strike with control with their hands, like then you get this better and better and better football team. And that would be, I think, the way to get over the hump and feel like, really feel like you can compete for a championship. Tyler asks, can you break down the safety communication on the back end? Seems like McKinney and Williams are so in sync. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it starts with, obviously the play call. Sometimes the linebacker has to make the call based on the passing strength or the run strength on what they're calling. We saw it in this game in particular. He had to send, McKinney came down McDuffie was coordinating traffic and had to tell Evan Williams to go back. It was on one of the counter plays that we actually were in the right position, and I think Cooper didn't make what I would just call a strong enough impact on John Runyon Jr. when he was pulling. But you see that communication. A lot of it's going to be done pre-snap based on what they see from the passing track. I have to imagine like Evan Williams is really smart, but Xavier McKinney has just a wealth of knowledge and experience in the league already. How much is happening post snap? I don't know. The communication, like you saw one where Valentine's trying to pass off to Evan Williams at the safety position when they were going to switch the deep crossers. So I think a lot of that happens. But as far as like, okay, you go here, I go there, it's just based on like what the coverage is, what the call is. And a lot of that stuff's going to be executed pre snap. I think those guys probably spend a lot of time trying to line up like in a way where you can't immediately read what the coverage is. So whether that means they're going to be staggered and flip, whether that means they're going to be even and split, like whatever's like, hey, we're running 2 here. Let's start out like we're running 4, or start out maybe like we're running 3 this time. I'll come down to the strong side, and then we'll both sprint back and get into our cover 2 drops. I think they spend a lot of time communicating on how they're going to set the table. And then all the post snap stuff, all the post snap stuff is not limited to just the 2 of them. I think it's around the entire DB room, including Bullard, including Valentine, and including Nixon. The Giants O-line that good, or the Packers D-line not have a good game. Seems like the Packers D-line got pushed around for most of the game. So I think both teams were able to run like some form of duo, and then either the guard tight end lead or like what we just call tight end kick for the Packers. So the double teams work. Here, another way of me saying that is like the double teams worked for both teams, and then the single blocks didn't necessarily work because I don't like the guard play inside. Although you saw that one with Aaron Banks and how important that play was on the backside shade. For the 8-yard run for Wilson, or was that Brooks? Can't remember. But those plays don't happen too often. I don't know, particularly at the point of attack, how good we are on either side of the guard position of kind of being able to push that 3 technique out of the way if you want. So you saw a lot of success, or you saw like the 4 to 5 to 6 yard runs, every once in a while 7, 8 yard run from the duo looks, the double teams, the down blocks with the kickouts, things like that. Not a lot of, and to the point with both the teams really, and the Giants did it earlier. It was like they were trying to run zone. They're not good at it. Like we were better at defending zone than they were at playing, so they just stopped doing it. It's like, okay, we don't need to do that anymore. We can't block those guys, so let's start running the down blocks, the doubles, the stuff that like we have better angles and we get downhill on. To go back to some conversations I heard last week, it's not about how big you are. It's like, what are you good at? Like some guys are good at running zone, some guys aren't. Some backs are good at running zone, some backs aren't. If you don't have good hands and footwork, you're not going to be a good zone running blocker. But you can still get downhill, and if you're a bumper and there's another guy that's going to double team with you, you can still do that pretty well, right? It's not that it's not as hard. It's just a different kind of difficulty. So I did think that our D line kind of showed that they could get not manhandled by any means. But I've never really liked how they take on double teams. Like I know it for me, it's harder if a guy takes on a double team by turning into a single block and attacking one of the guys. I've always found that like more difficult to play against versus like a guy tries to actually take on a true double team with like a shoulder on each guy. Like I just don't think I don't think it's that hard. Brian asks, I know you're not a huge draft guy, but if you had to evaluate the roster, where do they need an injection of talent in the offseason? They need another pass rusher. Is Matthew Golden going to be your number 1 wide receiver, or anybody who's going to be the true like Devontae Adams type there? I think that's a need. They need an offensive lineman. Jair Alexander was a true shutdown corner for a couple of years in Green Bay. Do we have one of those guys on the roster? I think those probably those positions. Feel great about safety. Feel great about young linebackers. Feel great about running back, quarterback, tight end. Feel great about Micah Parsons. Yeah, that's what I would say. I would say great interior offensive lineman. Maybe he's on the roster already. I'm not. I'll just say it right now. Like I don't think it's a. I think Jordan Morgan plays left tackle next year because I don't think they can bring back Rasheed Walker. Um, I don't. I have no idea. I'm not. I wouldn't. I guess they have to go in because it's a first round draft pick and saying like we're not gonna. They're not gonna draft that position. But I don't think it's just like this gimme. I don't. I think. I just don't think that's a layup. That's your tackle for the next 10 years. Like I don't know if that's Chad Clifton. Well, I know it's not Chad Clifton. Like you had Chad and Bakhtiari at that position for like 20 years. Like those are amazing players. So tough. I'm curious if you saw a more attention to detail compared to last week. I thought we were better in our doubles on the offensive line. Obviously when you have 7 drops on offense and 4 drops on defense, attention to detail is one of those things where you don't throw on loosely. Eric asks, do coaching staffs bring in consultants or ex-players in addition to help with technique for offensive linemen? No, they don't. I actually worked for a team. I will not disclose their name. And they did bring me in. I was working with tackling, and obviously I work with offensive line. I did not work with anybody on their team, but I offered that service. And this team was not playing very well up front. And the head coach, who's a great guy, came to me and just said, look, I cannot use you on that side of the ball because my offensive line coach will get butthurt. Like he will get butthurt. And not because they didn't hire me, but because they played so poorly that year, everybody got fired. And I think we talked about this on Andy's show. That thought process of let's think about the loyalty to the staff and their feelings more than loyalty to the mission of creating the best environment to be successful, whether that's bringing in somebody like me or not. Don't get me wrong. I'm just the general thought process of let's be loyal to that person who's not doing their job versus let's get somebody in there who's going to do that job really well or uncover whatever other stone that needs to be uncovered if that person needs help. Like Dan Campbell, for example, as quietly as he possibly could, went to the coordinator and said, like, I'm calling the plays now. And he's never called plays in his life. But he's like, my team, my responsibility, these guys need more. I'm going to try to do this. I'm doing everything I can. It's probably going to hurt that other guy. If that other guy was trying to get in a coordinator job somewhere else, a play calling job somewhere else, or head coaching job somewhere else, that didn't help. But you got to stay loyal to the mission. And that's something that a guy like Dan Campbell understands. Some of these coaches don't, and that's the problem. Or would a player seek that out? Yeah, a lot of guys do. We already talked about it. If you were the GM and you could pick a guard in the NFL as the perfect guard for Green Bay, who would it be? Well, Quentin Nelson's perfect for anybody because he's amazing. Same for center. The best players in the league are good anywhere. So if like right now, if you said, Quentin Nelson wants to play for Green Bay, okay, enough said. If you went, who's the fellow? The kid from Kansas City, the center wants to play for Green Bay. I don't care what we want to run option. I don't give a shit. Like he's better than everybody else. If Tunzel wants to play left tackle for Green Bay, like I don't, install whatever you want to install, or if Trent Williams says, hey, I want to play my last year in for Green Bay Packers, but I want to run, the option offense or I want to play, right tackle. They're all perfect because they're the best players on the field, the misnomer, I think, because we get in these conversations and there's so many draft experts and Twitter experts about this is a zone guy or this is a downhill guy or this is a man guy or he's got long arms, he's got short arms, he's tall. The best players can do anything really well, and whatever they do best. Everybody does something at the best thing they do. Whatever it could be, they tie their shoes. I was like a pulling guard. I pulled better than everybody else, so they pulled me a lot, right? Um, if you've got Trent Williams, right? Trent Williams is the best guy to make a backside three technique disappear on the planet. So if they run a zone play away from him, like the cutback's always there, so they run it a lot, like when he's healthy, right? Like makes sense. Um, the It's up to the staff to put those plays in to allow those people that are really good at a certain thing, and you're talking about the best guys in the league, to do it as much as possible. You know, just like figuring out what your running back likes to do. Mike, if you were the GM and you could pick a guard, oh, I just read that one. Blah, 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 blah. What did Mike Kafka change? Well, I think they took some chances, certainly on that first fourth down when they got it to the sideline. We didn't get a great pass rush. That was 4th and 3 on the 44 going out. Like, you just took a couple more risks there. The other thing is he changed the game plan as far as trying to slow this thing down. Ran the ball 38 times for like a 3.7 yard average, which is terrible, but enough to move the sticks, get the possession. It's slogfest. Like, slow the game down. Jordan Love doesn't need to have the football. Let's hope they have 7 drops and get a couple calls here and there, and blah 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 blah, and like we'll keep this thing close and make a play at the end. Like they did exactly what they wanted to do. We just made the plays at the end. What did you think of Ryan at center? I honestly, there was some. I think there was at least one snap was a little bit errant. Imagine your first game at starting, and this is a audition. Call it what it is. This is an audition for him to be the center for the long term for the Green Bay Packers. And imagine you're just like, hey, good news, you get this like audition at center, you could be the guy for the next 10 years here. Oh, cool. Yeah, we're playing against Dexter Lawrence. It's like, shit. And Dexter Lawrence threw him on the ground once. He beat him with an arm over once. He blew him up on a 3rd and 1 once. But I'm not just going to sit here. Like, the game didn't look any different than it did the week before, the week before, the week before, the week before. Like, I didn't see a big difference between him and Elton Jenkins. I think he has better footwork than Elton Jenkins does. I think Elton Jenkins is a better football player right now at this time in their, I think Elton Jenkins, when Elton Jenkins was playing left guard, is a better football player than Sean Ryan is right now at center. But I do think that Sean Ryan has the best footwork on the interior right now. I think that he's got the right demeanor. I just think like he goes about his business the right way. And these are things you can clean up, and you're not always going to play against an all-pro. If Jacobs is out, does that change the run scheme at all? More outside zone. Love Josh Jacobs, that run scheme with Aaron Jones at the end of 23 was okay. Yeah, both guys. When Aaron Jones left, we were like, how can you get rid of Aaron Jones? Josh Jacobs is not Aaron Jones, and I think Aaron Jones was amazing. I think what he did run after catch, screen game, obviously the outside zone stuff, and he's a different kind of runner, a little bit maybe more like Josh makes people miss in the hole like nuts. But yeah, like you do feel like Aaron Jones is more like the stretch, one cut, bang, just gone right through the hole before anybody could get there. The problem is we don't have the interior. We're just not blocking the zone very well. So it doesn't matter who's in the backfield. Like, you can't run it if the guy can't. If you got the same lineup and the guy can't block the 3-tech, like, you can't run the play. I think what you're probably going to see is more duo, more tight end kick, more guard counter. They've run some pin and pull like plays that have had some success. So I think you build on that. And then the other thing that Matt LaFleur was able to do this week, right? Everybody bitches about like, oh, get bread and butter. Okay, so like they run the reverse, best run of the game. They run the swing pass that turns out to be a run, second best or third best run of the game. They run the quarterback RPO, which they probably won't run with Jordan Love because they want him to get hurt. They run it with Malik Willis, second or third best run of the game. So your top 3 runs are like kind of gimmick plays, right? Which is, one, a statement about how your run game is, but 2, a statement about like your coach has the ability to find plays that could get you double, explosive runs. There are 3 explosive runs in the running game. Your 3 explosive plays in the running game were gimmicks. So is that is what it is. Was I tripping? Did the line actually play good? Here's what I'd say about the line. This is kind of going unnoticed. Like, they got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and usually Thibodeau, you didn't really call their names very often. Like the tackles played really, really well, And of course, like Brian Burns is always going to win late, and Abdul Carter's going to win late, and we hold the ball sometimes, and scramble around, blah blah blah. But like those guys played well, so yeah. I mean, outside, I thought they did a really good job. Now nothing's ever perfect, but they did a really good job. And 91 and 95 are not, I mean, they're NFL players, but they're not superstars, right? So did we handle guys that we should handle? Absolutely. Now, do you struggle against Dexter Lawrence? Yeah. I mean, but that's what happens. I thought they did better at the inside doubles. I thought the tackles played well. Arlie asks Mike, after watching Philly Bay down 3-4, bat down 3-4 passes with their DTs, you think Green Bay should coach that? Everybody coaches that, but the other part of that is like Jordan Davis, for example, for Philly, like, or Jalen Carter, they get doubled so much that they just start looking for it, right? Whereas a lot of times our guys feel like they have one-on-ones because they do. And those guys like to line up and go through people. And we try to go around the outside more often than not, right? Or we line up wide and then come back in. And so all those kind of like moves, like rushes with moves that aren't just like right off the line, trying to beat you right off the line. Like Jalen Carter tries to get people try to short set him all the time because they're scared of his bull rush. So then he tries to win at the line right now. So if he doesn't win at the line right now, he can start batting shit down. Same with Jordan Davis. Whereas like you give Jordan Davis a head of steam, dude ran like a 4.7 or something like that at the combine, right? He's like 330, 320. So if you give him a 4.73 and he runs a 320, runs a 4.7, you give him like 2 steps, like he's going to run me right over. So they try to get him at the line of scrimmage. So they do a lot of quick moves at the line of scrimmage. But like Carl Brooks, nobody cares if Carl Brooks bull rushes him because he's 295 at D tackle. So he's got like pass rush moves, like proper. I'm going to get to the edge. I'm going to try to get to the other edge, go horizontal or vertical, like bat your arms down. So he's got proper moves. Those are going to get you deeper into the play and deeper to the quarterback, where like you don't really need to bat anything down because you're trying to win. You're not getting stoned to the line of scrimmage. Any word on Marshall Lloyd? Not for me. Last one here. Love your breakdowns. Is Jordan Morgan a tackle playing out of position? He seems so much more comfortable there, and he seems to struggle with the power of big guys inside. Agree? Is there such thing as a tackle only? There absolutely is. Usually the taller, skinnier guys are kind of play inside because of the bend and the power and everything. Look, the game inside is not as hard as the game outside because the athletes outside are like, Abdul Carter is a freakazoid. The way that the game's being played right now, with the amount of like tight end hipped off or running back hipped off or wide receiver chips that across the league tackles are getting, like go back and watch 90% of the football teams and watch how many times the left tackle has to take like a 5 or 7 step drop back pass without a chip. Like it doesn't happen very often anymore. It's probably like, I would guess it's less than 20 times a game. I guess it's less than 15. It's probably around 10 or 12 times a game, which that used to be the norm, right? You wouldn't get that many chips. You might chip the tackle on the right side on the way out, but like the hipped off stuff has kind of evolved the game, right? So everybody chips now. So, I mean, I think that helps everyone. The suddenness inside with the power that's inside it's different. And so it happens like that. But then like you're not going to miss that guy. That's why like when Justin Tuck comes inside in the Super Bowl and runs NASCAR against, an all pro guard in the Patriots, Logan Mankins, Logan's like, what the hell is going on? It's not that Logan Mankins, like, he could probably play tackle, but when that guy lines up tight and all of a sudden you got like this dude who's never seen before, who's 275, runs a 4.6, just doesn't get off like a 315 pound, 4.9, 5.0 guy. There's not as much to hit. They can turn side. It's just different. Like you got to get used to it. So it's a different sensation. I think ultimately net guard's going to be easier than tackle. I mean, there's a disparity in the pay for a reason. But yeah, I think some guys are just more, if you're not a physical football player, you can't play inside. And guys guys can get to become a physical player as more confident they get. Maybe their demeanor changes a little bit, but right now, and again, I'll go back to it. Like I'm not. He's the default left tackle next year because they're going to get rid of Sheed Walker because he's going to ask for a contract, and that's why they drafted him and all that stuff. And I think if it works out, it makes tons of sense. Like I'm saying it now, and I've said it in the last couple of weeks. Like I don't know if they're doing him a favor right now because I think game experience is fantastic, but it also like you don't want his confidence to go down because he is having a really difficult time with some of the more physical aspects of the game. Now, he's not getting beat in the pass pro, which is the most important thing. Protecting your quarterback. He, for the most part, does a good job of that. So maybe when you look at it and go, yeah, well, like that's the tackle thing. So maybe that's what's going to pull him through. But I think there's guys on the team that could be. I would be really interested to see a right guard as well. I don't know if I answered your question, but I tried. All right. Well, we got the Vikings next week. I'll get a preview out. Guys, thanks for watching. Keep bringing in the questions, all this stuff down to MichaelWall68 on Twitter, Process to Perform Instagram, Process to Perform channel. Yeah, all of it. I love football. I'll see you guys.